My name is Cecilia Cheeks. I'm Managing Director of National Faith in Blue Weekend, and I'm also Chief Communications and Strategic Partnerships Officer for Movement Forward. Thank you for your time today. We are so glad to have your time and your attention to this very important matter. With us today, we have Mr. Jonathan Thompson, Executive Director of National Sheriff's Association and Anchor Partner in National Faith in Blue Weekend. Mr. Thompson, are you on the line there?
Ms. Cheeks, we might give him just a few moments.
Can you hear me now?
There he is.
There you are. Hi, Mr. Thompson. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm sorry. That's all right. I was muted. I'm driving, so welcome to everybody. Reverend, good to not be able to see you, but great to hear you. And Cecilia, nice to see you and hear you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Also with us is Mr. Tim Woods. Mr. Woods is Deputy... Beg your pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Woods is Deputy Executive Director. And Mr. Woods, I see your face in the place, sir. Would you have a few kind remarks you'd like to leave with us or give to us?
Thank you, Ms. Cheeks. Can everyone hear me? I think, am I on mute?
No, we hear you clearly.
Okay. No, thank you, Ms. Cheeks. Thank you, Reverend Hutchins. And especially, I also see Jared Bruder there, the chair of our State Sheriff's Association Committee Executive Directors. So I want to thank everyone for being on the call today, and certainly Reverend Hutchins for putting this together. I very much look forward to this introduction for the National Faith in Blue Weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. And last but certainly not least, we have Reverend Markel Hutchins. He's our fearless leader and CEO of Movement Forward, as well as national lead on National Faith in Blue Weekend. Reverend Hutchins.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cheeks, and thank you to everyone for joining and taking a few minutes off. I want to especially thank my friend and brother, Jonathan Thompson, for convening this meeting. The National Sheriff's Association has been an integral part of the conception and the organizing of National Faith in Blue Weekend, so we're obviously delighted to talk with you all, especially the execs from sheriff's offices across the country. I want to give you a little bit of background about how we got here. Several years ago, in the aftermath of the Michael Brown situation in Ferguson, Missouri, we organized the One Congregation, One Precinct, or One COP initiative, which essentially leverages the assets of faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, etc., in local neighborhoods to build bridges between the people in those communities, the citizens and the residents of an area, and the law enforcement professionals that police in that area, because houses of worship have resources that are natural allies and assets for law enforcement. So we started the One Cop program just over 3 years ago here in Atlanta, and have had a great deal of success with this model of leveraging the houses of worship in local neighborhoods to build better relationships between police and communities. So when the Faith in Blue Weekend concept started to come about, it came about as a result of our organizational desire to expand this collaborative model of really utilizing houses of worship through a structured, organized program to build the relationships that are needed between police officers and sheriff's deputies and the residents that you all police. So what we did was I approached the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice, where we have some pretty strong relationships in the 3 agencies in the federal government that deal directly with local policing, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA, the Office of Justice Programs, OJP, and the Office of Community Oriented Policing Services, also known as the COPS office. So I approached the director of the COPS office and said to him, we've got this idea to expand this one congregation, one precinct collaborative model across the country through an event that we've conceptualized, tentatively called National Faith and Blue Weekend. And the idea was to take the best of Coffee with a Cop, the best of National Night Out, provide some additional resources and support, and create a structured, ongoing collaboration between the communities and the law enforcement professionals in those communities by utilizing the house of worship for this weekend of healing and reconciliation. Now, that first organizational meeting happened in April, several weeks before George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And obviously none of us knew or could anticipate that that would happen. But in that conversation was Executive Director Thompson from NSA, the head of ICP, the head of FOP, literally all of the national law enforcement groups were a part of that initial organizing meeting. And together, everyone jointly said that this idea of National Faith and Blue Weekend is something that would be greatly beneficial to law enforcement. And again, that was before George Floyd was killed. Of course, after the death of George Floyd, it made it that much more apparent that we could use some healing and reconciliation and building of bridges between law enforcement and communities to build better understanding. And that's what National Faith and Blue Weekend is really all about. So I am thankful to Jonathan for recognizing that this effort is something that sheriffs across the country would want to be engaged in. And he and I had a pretty robust conversation and kind of decided upon the most streamlined way of getting the sheriffs in local communities across the country involved and in National Faith and Blue Weekend would be to talk to you, the executive directors of all of the state associations, because we really want this to be something that is not just an event, but creates a national movement that begins to change the narrative, shift the conversation from all of the fighting that we see and all of the visceral anger and those kinds of things to a more unified community and a more unified nation. And the sheriffs of America have a unique position in order to be able to effectuate that level of national impact. So we want to share with you a little bit about National Faith and Blue Weekend, tell you how it works, and then share with you how we anticipate you should be able to get the sheriffs in your state involved. National Blue Weekend is set for October the 9th, Friday, October the 9th, Saturday, October 10th, Sunday, October 11th, and Monday, October 12th. That's a long weekend that leads up to Columbus Day. And so that's the weekend that we have scheduled for National Faith and Blue Weekend. And it is the culmination of National Community Policing Week. The mission of National Faith and Blue Weekend is to facilitate safer and stronger communities by engaging law enforcement officers and local residents through connections of houses of worship. Again, houses of worship are uniquely positioned to be bridge builders and goodwill ambassadors between law enforcement and the communities because they have infrastructure, they have influence, and they gather hundreds and sometimes thousands of people in local neighborhoods of every kind across the country. That is the mission. In terms of the what, National Faith and Blue Weekend is a collaborative initiative that builds bridges and breaks down biases through activities and outreach amongst law enforcement professionals and the communities they protect and serve. In terms of the why, National Faith and Blue Weekend is based on the premise that stronger communities are built on mutual respect and understanding. Law enforcement entities and faith-based organizations are both key pillars in any community, and when they work together, neighborhoods and communities thrive. We've seen this in countless studies and countless research. When neighborhood organizations or neighborhoods thrive, when the faith-based community and law enforcement work hand in hand. In terms of the how, National Faith and Blue Weekend, as I mentioned earlier, is an extension of the One Congregation, One Precinct, or One COP initiative. a program of the organization that I lead, Movement Forward Incorporated, which is a solutions-focused human and civil rights organization that is based in Atlanta, Georgia. The One Cop initiative pairs officers and deputies at the beat or patrol level with local houses of worship. Similarly, National Faith and Blue Weekend is facilitated by law enforcement entities, faith-based organizations, and the community and citizens in those local neighborhoods. National Faith and Blue Weekend organizers represent literally every single major national law enforcement professional and membership group and every faith tradition in the United States of America. So not only do we have Christians and Catholics, we have Jewish leaders, Muslim leaders, leaders from the Sikh and Hindu and Buddhist community, all involved with National Faith and Blue Weekend. This effort is being co-convened, again, by our One Cop initiative and the U.S. Department of Justice to organize the most collaborative police community engagement project in recent history. Never before in history have all of the associations that you see on the screen collaborated in such a robust way around a community engagement project. As I mentioned earlier, our law enforcement partners include the three agencies in the federal government that deal most directly with local policing. A lot of them are grant-making bodies that your sheriff's offices in your states benefit from, BJA, OJP, and the COPS office, but as well the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, the Fraternal Order of Police, FOP, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National DAs, PERF, the Police Executive Research Forum, everyone in terms of all the national organizations and the police unions as well are involved in acting as co-organizers in this effort. And the largest police department in the country, or the largest law enforcement agency in the country, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, is formally engaged and partnered with us. We are partnered now with the Office of Public Engagement at the FBI. So it's really taken off really, really rapidly. And as you can see, this is really a consolidated effort among law enforcement. There is no cost for an agency or an association or a sheriff's office to be engaged through the generosity of FirstNet, built with AT&T, and the Motorola Solutions Foundation. We have the resources we need to organize, to share materials with you, to create materials so that there's no heavy lift on behalf of the sheriffs across America to do Faith and Blue activities in their local communities. We have a wonderful web portal that is a repository of all kinds of information, some of which we'll share with you momentarily. But thanks to the generosity of AT&T's FirstNet project and Motorola Solutions, there is no cost to anyone to be involved. I talked a little bit earlier about faith-based organizations and why we chose to work through faith-based organizations. To talk to you a little bit more about that, I'm going to bring in Jared Foyer, who is Executive Director of the One Congregation, One Precinct Initiative nationally, and he's the Chief Operating Officer of Movement Forward Incorporated. Jared?
Thank you, Reverend. So an important question in the concept of faith in blue is why faith? Why reach out to the faith community? And the answer you can see on this slide is that there's no community resource that rivals the depth or the breadth of the faith community. There are over 350,000 houses of worship across the country. And together they engage 65 million congregants in weekly observance. And you can find these houses of worship in large cities, in small towns, in every state, from coast to coast. And collectively, they represent the diverse canvas of our country. So when we were considering how to facilitate connections between law enforcement and the communities that they are charged with protecting and serving, faith stood out. We believe and we know that they are the front door through which you can engage the community. And that's why we paired together faith and blue. Thank you, Reverend.
Yes, thank you, Jared. And to add to what Jared has said, Tim, in most instances, the sheriffs in cities and towns across the country have relationships with pastors or the heads of the congregations, but those relationships don't always trickle down to the line officers, to the deputies and patrol officers, or the people that are working in the jails, having relationships with the community residents or the people that are part of these various houses of worship. What we have done in creating both One COP and National Faith and Blue Weekend is we've provided a mechanism for those relationships to extend beyond just the heads of the agencies or just the supervisors and the heads of the houses of worship, to actually leveraging these houses of worship to build bridges between communities and law enforcement. The website has a number of details for folks that are wishing to host a meeting. Those who wish to host a meeting, it's very simple. Again, we have created a turnkey system so that any sheriff's office, any house of worship can go to faithandblue.org, indicate their interest on the website, fill out an inquiry form, and download a planning toolkit that is a step-by-step guide for hosting a Faith and Blue activity. After that, a team member, after the entry or the inquiry form is submitted online, a Faith and Blue team member, a member of our staff, will reach out to the prospective host. If that is a sheriff's office, if that is a community group, if it's a faith-based organization, we will reach out to offer support and complete the registration process. We have done this to make sure that the folks that are registering for these events are in fact law enforcement agencies and respectable houses of worship. So we have a step-by-step process to ensure the integrity of every event that is posted as a Faith and Blue activity. The event is held afterwards, and utilizing the toolkit and the checklist that we've provided online. And after the event is held, we ask the event organizers or the host to submit a short write-up and photos so that we can tell the story. And the idea here is to create a movement across the country, not just a one-time event, but we're creating a movement. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how that is happening. So not only are we working with sheriffs across the country, we're working with police departments, with IACP, with a bunch of the other associations across the country to make sure that law enforcement agencies across the board are engaged. Once the events are hosted, people will then be able to find an event at faithandblue.org. They'll be able to go, I'm sorry, I'm losing my way here. They'll be able to go and find an event at faithandblue.org. They'll be able to search for an event by either address or location. They can put in their zip code or their address and find an event. They will be able to find the event details under the Finding an Event tab that will include the location, participating or hosting organizations. They'll be able to find the date and time of the events. And if they cannot find an event that is near them, they'll be able to organize one themselves. And of course, our team will be there to support them in that effort. There are a lot of different types of activities that we have created as samples for law enforcement agencies to organize with their partner houses of worship. I'm going to ask Jared to come back in here and tell you a little bit more about the types of activities that we have created in the toolkit as samples and examples. And again, each one of them has a step-by-step guide as to how to organize. Jared?
Thank you, Reverend. So first I want to state that these are activities that we really enjoyed putting together, but we don't see this as the only type of activities. What we ask is that all activities have three core components. Number one, that they involve a law enforcement agency. Number two, that they involve a local house of worship. And number three, that they be open to the public. From that, really, it can be any type of activity that really strikes the creativity and that really calls to the community. But in order to help, we have designed 12 sample activities, and we're actually going to extend this to 15 activities that you can find in the toolkit. And they are a diversity of activities. Some of them are about having in-depth discussions where you really bring the community and law enforcement together to talk about issues, such as the crucial community conversation. Others are about more getting to know you, like the officer equipment tour or a athletic event. Some are about working hand in hand to build a stronger community, like the community service project or a peace walk. So each of these activities have detailed steps about how to organize them in advance, what to do on the day of the event itself. And then, because this is a time of COVID, each of these sample activities has 3 options. And we list out how they can be organized for each of these 3 options. How they can be organized in person, how they can be organized with social distance, or how they can take place completely virtually. And we really look forward to seeing all these great activities happen across the country and to finding out new activities that communities and partners are able to put together based on their own ideas. Thank you, Reverend. Reverend,
Thank
you
you,
might be.
Jared. Thank you, Jared. I'm sorry, I muted myself because I had to cough. Again, thank you, Jared. The activities that we've designed are things that we have collaborated with the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services and our law enforcement partners, because they're things that we've seen work in other places across the country, but as well, the local sheriffs and the local houses of worship know their communities better than anyone else, and there may be some activities that they create and they innovate, and we welcome that, and the toolkit also supports them in those activities. I've talked a number of times about the toolkit. In that toolkit, and you'll see a graphic on the right of your screen that shows you the cover of the toolkit, but in that toolkit, there are planning steps for the sample activities that Jared talked about. There's a checklist for getting started, how folks can get started organizing. There's a sample media advisory, how to announce Faith in Blue Weekend, how to begin getting started. And there's some answers to frequently asked questions as well. All of those things are contained in the toolkit. Among the other resources in the resources tab on the website are a customizable poster. So there's a poster that can be customized to the specific sheriff's agency, the specific sheriff's office. There's an e-card, a postcard that can be sent out to partner houses of worship or to community organizations or whomever the sheriffs desire. There are banners that can simply be, they're turnkey. The sheriff's office can simply input their logo or information and have those banners printed out. There are t-shirts as well. On the front of the t-shirts, there are some general information about National Faith in Blue Weekend, but on the back, the sheriffs can put their agency logos or whatever other information they might deserve. So the other resources, the resources tab contain a bunch of different resources so that the sheriffs can, again, brand National Faith in Blue Weekend and plan the activities as their own, so that there's local ownership of these things. This slide that you see on the screen now has a number of those sample resources. The e-card is what you see on the left of your screen. In the middle, you see the t-shirt. Again, it has the basic information for National Faith in Blue Weekend on the front, and on the back, it has a number of it has place for you to put your own individual logos. You see there are banners, there's a toolkit, all of these things are on the website. There's also, if you look on the right, there's a one-pager that can be downloaded on the resources page, but it's also on the front page at the very top of www.faithinblue.org, and it gives, again, a great overview of what Faith in Blue Weekend is and how it works. In terms of why participate, I want to bring in, Cecilia Cheeks, who is our Managing Director of National Faith in Blue Weekend, to talk about some of these resources, because she and the marketing and branding company that created these things work hand in hand. Cecilia?
Thank you, Reverend. Yes, so the tools that you see here are created with the end user in mind, both at predominantly at the local level. And so the idea is that these tools are going to be turnkey and ready to use, taking the load off of the coordinator and the individuals who are coordinating and or putting together or designing their activity at a local level. So there's customization, as Reverend indicated, lots of opportunity for customization. And there is additional opportunity, particularly because we're on hand, that if there's a need, you can simply express, you know, the desire if you want to make a modification, or if there's something that you'd like to see or wonder if it exists. We're on tap and available to answer those types of questions, and we will do everything we can to support the individuals who are coordinating at the local level. So everything from press releases that have been formatted, they've got quotes included, and also an opportunity for local leadership to speak on National Faith in Blue and what it means for their respective community. And so everything we've taken detail and time, been very thoughtful about what would someone need at the local level. Someone who doesn't necessarily have a marketing team, or someone who doesn't necessarily have the resources to promote and or spread the word for National Faith in Blue. So with that in mind, these are the tools that we thought would have the most impact and be most useful.
Thank you, Ms. Cheeks.
Thank you.
And in terms of why participate, I think the answer is pretty clear. There is a sentiment in America today, and so many people are divided on so many things. What National Faith in Blue Weekend gives us an opportunity to do is to send a message that there's more that unites us together than there is that divides us. And I don't think we can wait until we have another tragedy. We've had an enormously difficult year in terms of police community relations. There's, you know, I through our relationships with law enforcement, we're kept well aware of the fact that there's an increase in officer suicides. There are officers leaving the professions. There are obviously riots and protests that have happened over the last several months in every part of our country. We cannot wait for another crisis. And also in an election year, we wanted to create a method that actually puts law enforcement in the center of healing and reconciliation in this environment. So in terms of the why, we think every sheriff in America would want to participate in National Faith in Blue Weekend is to create connections with community members, direct connections between your officers and deputies and the people that they serve. Secondly, to build ties with influential community leaders. One of the things, again, that we see is that a lot of sheriffs have relationships with some of the leaders in their communities, but to have an event where the house of worship is leading the charge, is bringing people together to celebrate reconciliation and hope and healing is a wonderful opportunity. Thirdly, to identify new community leaders to collaborate with. This will be an opportunity for people that have never been engaged with their agencies before, with your member agencies before, to really build those kinds of relationships. Fourth, to create positive local media stories. And I cannot emphasize enough that I cannot imagine that there's not a city or a county in this country that is not in need of some local stories that are positive about police community or law enforcement community engagement. And then finally, to be a part of a national movement. Yesterday, Jonathan and I participated with 162 faith leaders of every denomination from across this country, from 42 of the 50 states. There were faith leaders on, and those are denominational leaders, cardinals and archbishops from the Catholic Church, the head of the Southern Baptist Church, and the head of the Jewish Security Network. So the word is spreading very rapidly, and we wanted to make sure that we got ahead of everybody and making sure that we directly communicate with the sheriffs in America, because we think that the sheriffs, again, are uniquely positioned to be impactful in this moment in time through this National Faith in Blue Weekend process. In terms of what is needed and what our ask is of the sheriff's associations in every state, the way in which we came about this is the Sheriff's Association in Georgia, which is where we're based, and we have a long-standing partnership with the Georgia Sheriff's Association. Georgia has 159 counties, and our sheriffs are very active, and our Sheriff's Association is very active. They asked me to keynote their summer meeting a few weeks ago, and I went up and spoke to them. The sheriffs voted unanimously to partner with National Faith in Blue Weekend across our state. But what was recommended to me, and this is why I called Jonathan and asked him to gather together the state execs, is the Sheriff's Association in Georgia said to me that the same kind of presentation that we gave to them, we should also give it to all of the states, because the Georgia Sheriff's Association felt strongly that the other sheriffs across the country would also very much appreciate and benefit from hearing the kind of detail and step-by-step guide that we've provided for you today. So what we would love to do is to give you the kind of briefing, or give your sheriffs the kind of briefing via Zoom, and we can do it in 30 minutes, a step-by-step walkthrough, so that we give the sheriff's departments across all of your states, we give them the information and the resources that could be useful to them to go out and organize. So here are the three things that we'd like for the sheriff's associations in all of the states that have sheriff's associations to do. Number one, notify all of your sheriffs in your state of National Faith in Blue Weekend and urge their participation. Again, we have talked to sheriffs in various parts of the country. Major county sheriffs is one of our partners, and we've been in conversation with the sheriff in Los Angeles and Suffolk County and Jacksonville, Florida, and other places. Sheriffs love this idea of National Faith in Blue Weekend because a lot of it is stuff that you all do anyway. But this is an opportunity to do it in a consolidated, collaborative way with other agencies across the country. So we're asking and really appealing to every sheriff executive on this line and those who are not present to notify your sheriffs of National Faith in Blue Weekend and urge their participation. For more information, they can simply go to www.faithinblue.org. So that's number one. Number two, we would ask each of the sheriff's associations to go to Faith in Blue /schedule by August the 29th. So by next Wednesday or so, we would love for you to go and register, because the same kind of training and overview that we're giving to you today, our team will give it to the sheriffs in your state. And that's what we did here in Georgia. The Sheriff's Association in Georgia scheduled a Zoom call. 70 or so sheriff's departments got on that Zoom call. We gave them an overview that was comprehensive, and now they're organizing from one side of the state to the other. And that's what we're willing to do for the sheriffs in your state. If you can set a meeting for the next 2 weeks, all of next week and the following week, we will block out a 1 hour time period, and we will give, again, a comprehensive overview to all of your sheriffs at a time that you set. Now, of course, we can't do this for individual agencies because there's so many sheriff's departments across the country. But if you can call a meeting of the sheriffs in your state, go to Faith in Blue /schedule and put a time in, a member of our team will give a comprehensive overview for the sheriffs in your state. And our third request to those of you who are on the line is to begin posting on your website and social media platforms about National Faith in Blue Weekend using the hashtag Faith in Blue. We will do everything that we can to be supportive, but we really want and need the sheriff's help and the Sheriff's Association's help to begin to get the word out to our law enforcement agencies across the country. We're doing the same thing, of course, with the chiefs and the police, but we think the sheriff's officers are key and critical. So if Jonathan, if you're on the line, if you could jump back in here and make mention of anything that I may have missed, and then I want to answer any questions that any of the sheriff's associations across the country might have. Did I miss anything, Jonathan?
Reverend, thank you. I don't think you missed anything. I want to add my voice to that of Terry Norris's and say a couple of things that may be obvious to most of us executive directors, if not all of us, is that because sheriffs are elected, they have natural convening abilities, and add to that their communications with their faith-based leaders makes us a natural fit. We're excited to be a part of this, and I want to just tell you that this is exciting. I think this is something that we can, as an association, as executives, we can take hold of and begin to shape it into the needs of each of your members and the local requirements. So that's a huge lift for us. Reverend, you and your staff have put all of these tools in one place. That's what's so wonderful about this, is that it is a turnkey solution. So again, I just want to thank you, Reverend, your staff, for your vision, for your leadership, your absolute drive to do this. And we're there with you, and I encourage all of our state execs, if you have any questions, I can answer something, please don't hesitate, reach out, and we'll seek to find you the answer or work with you to make it an even better event. So, Reverend, I'll stop there and just say one last time, thank you so much for pushing this.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I can't say enough. I mean, Jonathan knows that I have, over the course of my public career, I've been at the forefront of human and civil rights. And as I told the President's Commission on Law Enforcement several weeks ago, and I testified before them, there's a lot of conversation in America today around the need for police reform. And the truth is, we have the best skilled and highly trained law enforcement professionals of any society or any nation in the world. What we need is not just police reform that focuses on policy and procedure. What we need is relational reform. We need a reformation in how law enforcement professionals and community members relate to one another, how they see one another. And what Faith in Blue Weekend gives us an opportunity to do is to present a movement to our nation. As long as we've got some people standing in their corner yelling, "Our lives matter," and other people standing in their corners yelling, "Our lives matter," there's very little good that can be accomplished. But when we sit together at tables of brotherhood and sisterhood in every community and in every neighborhood, we will begin to see a changing of the culture, a changing of the discourse and the dialogue that we see in America today. So the other person at NSA who has been a real asset to us is Jessica Vanderpool. She has been a wonderful resource for us. She serves on the working group on behalf of NSA. Jessica is the Director of Grants and Contracts for NSA. Is there anything you want to add, Jessica? You've been a part of this process from the very beginning. And then I'd like for us to take the next few minutes of our time and answer any questions from the state execs.
I don't have anything else to add other than it's been on this committee, this working group, and it's also, I've loved representing NSA while working with all of you. So I strongly encourage everybody to share this with their sheriffs and join this very important weekend.
Steve is the executive director. Steve, I've heard a lot about you. The sheriffs in Florida, is he on, Tim, the executive director from Florida? Terry Norris, our executive director here, made mention and told me that I should make Steve say something if he's on the line. Maybe not. Okay. Are there any questions that we can answer?
Reverend Hutchins, this is Jared Bruder, South Carolina Sheriff's Executive Director. Just a question or two. First, I want to thank you. That sounds like a very well thought out, put together plan, and absolutely needed at this time. I am certainly going to put it out to the sheriffs in South Carolina and anticipate them getting involved with this. I anticipate, though, some questions about obviously trying to do these things in the midst of COVID-19. A lot of the things that were put up there are obviously issues that you would have to be in person with. Any suggestions or ideas on what to do with that? I'll let you answer that one, and then I have a follow-up question for you on that too.
Absolutely. Every one of the activities that are planned out, that are laid out in the toolkit, have three options. They have an in-person option, they have a virtual option, and they have a small group option. So the small group options are the things that we've seen people gravitate to most. because there is some in-person interaction, but those things are streamed. So they're in the toolkit. There are options for virtual events, and most of the events that are in the sample toolkit have all three options. They have a virtual option, they have an in-person option, and they also have a small group option. So absolutely, we have considered and contemplated and planned around COVID-19 in that way.
What are some of those small group options you're talking about? Just so I can conceptualize it.
So one of the small group options is a community conversation where the law enforcement agency head and his or her deputies would sit in a church with a small group of no more than 40 members of the community and have a dialogue. Why is it that sheriffs do what they do? What is it that a sheriff does? Why can't if there's a tragedy, why can't the sheriff speak directly immediately? So having those kinds of conversations, that is just one example of, and we just did this, we being our One Cop initiative just did this in a small community in Metro Atlanta. That is an example of a small group activity that can be done. A peace walk, no more than 40 people walking through a neighborhood with the law enforcement professionals, carrying a message forward of we're here, we are one, we're standing with each other. We don't know everything there is to know about each other, but we're open to learning from one another. So those are just some various options.
And I guess I'll steal this moment to kind of ask a personal question that I've been dying for.
Yes.
South Carolina, we're taking the initiative ourselves as law enforcement to try to require de-escalation training, cultural diversity training, implicit bias training, those types of things. But quite frankly, we're kind of having a difficult time in finding some of that, specifically from African Americans. If y'all have some of that, could you send it my way? Because we need it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll say that, and I am a big proponent, and this really has nothing to do with Faith in Blue. I'm a big proponent of de-escalation training and anti-bias training and those kind of things. But I am also very much convinced that after years of being at the forefront of these issues, that only human engagement can really cause someone not to have bias. You can't train, there's some things that can't be trained. You cannot train, and I've said this 1,000 times, the solutions to the challenges that we face in America today when it comes to police reform, justice, social justice, race relations, those things will not be fixed by legislation. They will not be fixed by an executive order. They will not be fixed by policy and procedure. They will not be printed in ink. They will be imprinted in the hearts and minds of the American people and law enforcement professionals. That's why things like Faith in Blue are so important, because it imprints things in our hearts and minds that can't be fixed by policy and procedure. So, but I'd be happy to share more with you about some of the resources that we might have to be able to help.
Okay, thank you.
Other execs?
Reverend Hutchins.
Yes, sir.
Rodney Miller from West Virginia. I'm in a little bit of a unique position that I'm also a member of our House of Delegates. Kind of puts me on both sides of the door, so to speak. One of the things that I have been trying to do is put together a statewide initiative with legislators, as well as faith-based members, members of groups from just throughout the state. We haven't experienced a lot of the difficulties that other states have, but in trying to bring that together, is that something that we could get Faith in Blue to be a part of as I organize this? Because of course, most of what we're going to be doing is online right now because we can't get into the Capitol because of COVID. Is that something that we could get you involved in and bring you into the mix on a statewide basis, kind of magnify it just a little more?
I do. I think that's a great option. And one of the things that is so valuable, and I think this is going to be a valuable resource to NSA and to all of your state associations, what Faith in Blue Weekend will do is give us a list of community organizations, community influencers in every single state, and I expect West Virginia will be among those, where we have dozens and hundreds of activities that are happening in local communities. It will create a list that we can then utilize for the purposes of having a statewide kind of plan of action specific to every state like you're talking about. And I think that's the kind of thing that Jonathan was referencing earlier. This is an opportunity for every state, because every state has issues that are very different. The issues you have there in West Virginia are very different than they have in New York. And I see the New York State Sheriff's Association is on the line. Those are very different than they have in California. And I know their executive director is on the line as well. So every state, we want the state associations to take ownership of this. We don't ever have to talk to you again. There's, we'd love to be there and be helpful, but we want to present this to you, and then we want the state associations to take ownership yourself. There is no right or wrong way to do this. We just know that when we stand together, every state, city after city, and community after community, there is no limit to the good that we can do. So other questions? I think we have 12 additional minutes in order to, I'd love to hear back. New York, California, Texas.
How about Kansas? How about the great state of Kansas?
Great state of Kansas. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, this is Sandy Horton from Kansas. Thank you, Jonathan, for making these arrangements to set this up today. I appreciate that. Reverend, and this might be for Cecilia, here in Kansas, we're starting some very small, what we call district meetings in 2 weeks. Are there printed materials that are available now that could be shared with, we'll reach over 80% of our sheriffs in Kansas in the next 3 to 4 weeks personally. Are there printed materials available now?
So I think the answer is yes. However, I have a couple of points of a couple questions, and I'd be more than happy to have that discussion with you offline, sir. So I will does that sound good to you?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
But the answer is yes. And the points of the questions that I have for you offline are more around specifics that we can provide to give you exactly what you need. But it would most likely be a package of things that we could provide to you, as opposed to yes or no. The answer is yes. And I'd like to talk so I can give you the most appropriate support materials for that.
Once you go to faithandblue.org and you see all of the resources that are there, the one pager is quite comprehensive. And so at faithandblue.org, I think you'll already find what your sheriffs would need to begin organizing in their local areas. Other sheriffs associations? Yes, sir. I thought he wanted to say something. Others?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question, if I may. My name is Don Thompson. I'm the chaplain for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, state of Alabama. Recently put in this position. So I'm not sure of the state of Alabama Sheriff's Association's participation at this time. I was asked by our sheriff to be on this call today to gather information as opposed to what will be taking place. So is there involvement from the state of Alabama Sheriff's Office, Sheriff's Association? I'm sorry, did it?
Yeah, I don't know that. Mr. Thompson and NSA issued the invitation, and I know, I feel fairly certain Alabama was invited, but maybe Jonathan or Tim or Jessica could speak to that. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, they definitely were invited, Reverend. I don't know if they're on this call. I would imagine they would have been.
Tim, you want to jump in there?
Certainly. I just wanted to say, Mr. Thompson, if there's any way you would like us to connect you with the Alabama Sheriff's Association, if you already, can't do that without our assistance, we'll be happy to do so. Maybe after this call, I can get in touch with you and see how I can facilitate anything that would be helpful with you and the state association.
I will greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other states, you know, we'd love to know, Ms. Earnhardt, we'd love to know what you think and some of the others from across the country.
Reverend, this is Steve Luce, Executive Director, Indiana Sheriff's Association. You can count Indiana Sheriff's Association in fully in support. I think this is an awesome event and exactly what our country and our communities need at a time like this. And I appreciate you guys stepping in. And I think if I've done it right, I've already scheduled a time for you guys to talk to my sheriffs. Hopefully it went through online on my scheduler. But thank you, and thank you to the NSA for your time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Earnhardt?
Yes, hi, I'm Lauren Earnhardt. I'm the Deputy Executive Vice President for the North Carolina Sheriff's Association. We've got a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'll be taking this to them to make sure that they know what's happening.
Wonderful.
I appreciate all of this information.
Wonderful. Other states? There are a bunch of you on the call. Okay, you're unmuted now. Yes, sir.
Yep. Bill Ofo from Washington State, and very interesting. Look forward to participating. I'm not sure if our state director's on the call or not, but I just want to say hello from out here. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Greetings from Wyoming, the smallest state in the nation. So I'm excited by what you're offering and hoping over the course of this discussion and the feedback from that the toolkit and the startup is something I can share with my 23 sheriffs and reach a degree of enthusiasm. We held a meeting yesterday with Attorney General Barr, talked about the relationship that the law enforcement in Wyoming already has with our citizens, and this will fit into that and dovetail into that pretty nicely if we can figure out how to make it all float between the COVID restrictions, the long distances between communities, and our sheriffs and our chiefs both. So look forward to seeing some of the startup paperwork, if you will, and that information coming out so that I can share it and be articulate in explaining what it is we're about to do.
If I could ask you all to take down this email address, we have already prepared a deck for you. We're going to share this deck. We're going to share that we've shared today. We're going to share out the toolkit. We're going to share with you a video recording of this meeting. We have already prepared those things for you. As soon as this meeting is over, we're going to end the recording. We're going to upload it, and we will be able to send you a link so that you could then share it out. So you'll have the toolkit, you'll have the one-pager, you'll have the deck from today's presentation, and all of our contact information. If you would send an email as soon as this meeting is over, and we do not have everyone's email address, we will send it directly to you. If you send us an email at info, I-N-F-O, at faithandblue.org, info at faithandblue.org. If you could do that right away, we will be able to turn around and get you those resources and that information immediately.
Reverend Carrie Hill from the Executive Director for the Massachusetts Sheriff's Association. I just want to say thank you. I'm excited. I appreciate your passion. I'm already registered. We're registered with you for a week from Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to having you speak to our sheriffs. But what I really appreciated was your whole point about relationships. This is truly about relationship reform and elevation. So I applaud the work that you're doing. Thank you, Jonathan, for all of your great work, and Jessica in putting this together. So we look forward to working with you and sharing the message together.
Thank you very much. Is the California Sheriff's Association on? I saw we got a confirmation. Who's the executive director there?
Carmen Green is the executive director there. I don't know if she's on the line, but I'll definitely make sure she has the information.
Wonderful. And others we didn't hear from. Are there any other questions?
This is Kathy Cohen with the California State Sheriff's Association. I'm the government affairs liaison, and to Carmen as well, if you like.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Or send it directly to her.
Absolutely. So if you thank you very much. Thank you. And our time is winding down. We've got 5 minutes. So I just want to, in closing, again, say thank you. Again, I can't ask you enough. Please send that email to info@faithandblue.org, info@faithandblue.org, and we will send you everything that we have that could be useful in scheduling the meeting with the sheriffs in your state. A number of you, we can see a number of you have already started to schedule those meetings. We're scheduling the similar meetings with state chiefs associations as well. So don't be surprised if you get correspondence from your chiefs association in your state as well. But send us that email and we will respond accordingly to info@faithandblue.org. And please, again, schedule those meetings so that we can speak directly to the sheriffs in your state, give them all the information that they need. And a final thing that I would ask of you is to do what some of you have already said. Please share with your colleagues, other state execs that are not on this call. Please share with them this information and urge them to get involved the way you are. I know some of you have very deep relationships with your colleague, Mr. Butler. I was told by Mr. Bruder, I'm sorry, I was told that you have very strong relationships with Alabama and Louisiana and other places across the country. Please share it with your colleagues because we really want to make this an overwhelming success and override some of the negative stories that we've seen and heard in the news in recent days. This is the first time that I've done this in one of these, but I'd ask you all to indulge me and let me just close in prayer if that's okay. Let us pray together. God, we know you by many names, but we believe that your healing hand is upon our nation. I pray that you would touch every person that is participating in this meeting, that you would inspire and encourage us, that though the difficult days are among us and upon us, that we are not without hope because we have faith in the future and we have faith in humanity, and certainly we have faith in you. Keep us and protect us. God, I pray that you would protect every sheriff's deputy, every law enforcement professional, that no hurt, harm, or danger shall fall upon them this day. Bless our efforts, God, that people everywhere will know what National Faith and Blue Weekend is, not for our glory, but for the glorification of good and decency and humanity among us. Bless us now as we dismiss from this meeting. Let us go to work in your vineyard. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Thank you, Executive Directors. God bless you all. Be well. Get home safe.
Bye-bye.